Welcome all. I'm going to try and do a little session by makeshift light. My plan was to do it by headlight. The iPad is atop the car hood, but that was not meant to be. So I'm gonna log in here, and we'll see what we can get done. There it is. Good. We'll see if we can. I'm gonna just settle into my horse stance for a little bit of practice. I know that the light's not that great. Perhaps in post-production, I'll raise the light level, the exposure just a little bit, but I got some light on me from a couple sources. So we got what we got, and I'll give a whirl, trying to share this and see how we do. For a little bit of fun. Gonna try and share this, and that's good. I'm not gonna bother trying to share it with 500 people. I'm just gonna do it as it is. So it's probably upper 30s here, but it feels like about no wind. Still overcast, but it's evening, a little bit quieter between the wind and sounds of the farm, and so maybe hearing me at this kind of usual distance is a little bit better here tonight. So feet parallel. I think we'll do some Jinji Duli tonight. So I think it's Jinji Duli. I think that's right. I can look it up. So feet parallel. True beginners, horse stance. Weight evenly distributed on both feet. Weight evenly distributed between the 2 feet. And I've distributed that weight atop a level supportive surface. Non-slip. We'd like that. Of course, I have hiking boots on, and I'm not all that level. So you are going to be doing better than I. But such is the limitations that here I am. So I'm going to practice bending the knees, aiming the movement of the knees in the same direction my toes point, which for me is south or towards camera. So just bending and then checking in that I don't have this coincident bend of my hip that tips my torso forward, which will feel like a bow, maybe a very small bow, a subtle bow. So I'm actually going to practice this time with my palms, maybe just a few fingers, but the palm portion of my fingers, maybe 2 or 3 fingers, 1 or 2 fingers on this inguinal crease, sort of the place that the little shallow groove that goes between the hip and the groin. So just in that area, probably at the upper portion near the belt line or the waist. And I just want to bend the knees, track the knees going forward, and tune into the experience here at my hands. What happens when I do that? Does the angle, the perceived angle, change? The angle between the thighs and the torso, does it change more than I expected? What we'd like is to have the torso, I guess I'll come closer, we'd like to have the torso vertical, and then here's where my hands meet, my fingers meet is the hip, and my knees are over here somewhere. I'd like to have the sinking drive my knee forward, which is, this direction as I show you, but I don't want to have, I'm trying to find the light for you, I don't know. I don't want to have this as well as this come forward. That's what I meant by the bow. So down brings the lower portion forward, the femurs. I don't want to also have this, that would have been my shoulders up here where my wrist is. So a couple elements to this equation. And I'd like to have not multivariable, just have the angle of the knees change and the angle of the hip change from one variable, that is to say, trochanter to knees, femur changes. One of the feelings that I'll get with that is that I'll have a sense of my tailbone dropping in the direction of my heels or thereabouts, as opposed to possibly pitching backwards. Sometimes when people have that bow sensation, they'll feel the balls of their feet bear a little more pressure, maybe even feel the heels float. And the idea here is to begin to develop a method to self-assess through light contact, maybe even a little palpation, just to come to understand what that feeling is. And is the feeling I'm experiencing today close to what I was going for? Is it a little tight? Is it a little off? Is it a little fast? Too much going on at once? Is not enough going on here? So all I'm doing is sinking, coming up, sinking. Sinking every time, tracking the knees. As I've said over and over, if you have a question or comment, please type it in and I'll see if I can get to it, because my plan is just to really be standing here for a bit. Good. Something to check in here, since we're doing this kind of gentle practice, and maybe coming from a gentle arts place, mindset. Since I have these hands a little bit higher than we've had them for any other practice, I've really just been saying just leave them out, put them in your pockets, we're not going to be using them. Even though this isn't very high, this is a little bit higher than they might naturally hang. So maybe just check in. Did the invitation to put the palms on the inguinal crease, did that invite your shoulders up? Did it invite tension into your shoulders? Did that invite your breath to be more shallow than it might otherwise have been? So if you're a long-term martial artist, might very well not have experienced the acceptance of that invitation to tighten and to raise. But while it may be subtle, you may be able to recognize the invitation. And that invitation, which may be something that you often refuse or always refuse as, a veteran practitioner, that may help you understand what a beginner is responding to. We give our beginners so many things to work on, and we want them to listen to us, but they're recipients of manifold invitations to do other things. Hold the breath, come out of the stance, lean over, tighten up, make the breath shallow, be distracted, daydream, right? Shift the weight, lower the arms, all these kind of things. Even though you're up at the front of the class saying, I very clearly said, just do this. There are many and very subtle invitations that every practitioner is receiving. And you may be so expert that you have missed or forgotten or no longer hear the subtle, whispered, quiet clarion call of the dissolution of a good practice. So I'm inviting my hands to help me check in with the practice. Now, I might not normally kind of just leave them here. I'd be doing the practice at whatever pace, whatever depth I happen to be doing. And maybe if I want to check in or I think something might be off, I might just do this for a practice or two. Or maybe when I add a real complexity to this otherwise simple practice, like I'm working on, this particular move tonight. When I do that, I wonder, if that has, gone out of line. Have I brought the butt back and the shoulders forward? And so, rather than you know, doing this practice that I'm working on, I might, all right, let me just feel like, what does that actually do? And does that depart from what I'm supposed to be doing? But for this, it's kind of like a little Neigong, a little practice of collecting yourself and quieting the energies, growing the energies, cultivating the energies. It's going to be nice just to be bending with that physical finger presence on that crease. And you can really be anywhere that suits you, but I think near the top is where you're likely to feel the bend, and maybe the fingers get pushed out of the way or bent or overlapped. You know, as I bend here, my fingers kind of squish together a little. So that's a good bit of feedback for me. I was thinking it's probably a little bit quieter than usual when I'm here in the daytime, but I also realize now that since it's nighttime, I tend to be quieter in my voice. So maybe we're not netting any better broadcast volume. I don't know. Make sure that if you see a notice there to, you know, be notified when I go live, you consider clicking that. I don't do these on a schedule. I just try and carve out a half hour. I might very well have, you know, 16 clients in a day or 14 clients, and there's not much time, and somebody cancels, somebody's late, there's an hour off for me, and I've sipped on some soup. I may click the live button and go. So good. So that's a little horse stance warm up. We're going to do it with the harder knee tracking. So just a little wider sip of tea. So I've done just a little bit of a wider horse stance here, although we're doing a variation. So I have my feet open, about 30 degrees, maybe up to 45, but anywhere in there is fine. In fact, they don't even have to match, and it might be more interesting if they don't quite match. This one's 45, that's 30, for the purpose of this practice. And that's just to sink in and then track, so my femur travels precisely in the direction described by the line drawn through my heel in the direction of my toes. As I said, that's about 45, so that's where I want. Now this is a little bit more challenging because I can't just model it in my mind and go 45, 45. I have to feel where that heel to toe goes and track it accurately. And that may mean I take a look down and see. I don't have the perfect example here, but well, that's pretty interesting. That might be kind of perfect. So I have this cane with a few feet. Again, I'm sure you can't see all that well, but it actually kind of goes right over my toes. So I kind of have this vertical line right over the ball of the foot. So as I track this, if I notice that I come and I touch it with the outside of my knee, I haven't tracked very well. And if I notice I don't think I would do it that way, but if I track to the other side, I haven't tracked very well. So now the cane is on the inside of the knee. Whereas if I bump the cane with my patella, then I've tracked well. So here I am just using a physical check so that I don't have to look down, so I can develop a proprioceptive sense. And if I do this nice and slowly, and I'm not sure if this cane will fall, so I'm kind of trying to keep it in place. As we're on a little slope here, it's probably going to be okay if I leave it. I don't know. And of course, we did a version of this where we shift, come up and rest, sink, shift, come back to center, come up to rest, sink, shift, come to center, come up and rest, or perhaps 1, center, 2, center, then rest. So I did each side and then came up and rest, or maybe I do a few of them each side, then rest, whatever you like, or whatever's appropriate. So that's a little bit of knee tracking practice. I'm going to do it a couple more times just without that. See if I can kind of coordinate my breathing. I want to make sure that I don't lean at all. I just shift, come back, come back, come back, come back, come back. So I just sat, always being aware of where the knees are in relation to the foundation foot. In other words, I'm less concerned where this knee is as it's not weighted, but this I'm quite concerned that it's done well. Now, similar to what I was doing here with the fingers, I'm just resting my palm on my navel, or just below my navel somewhere, and really just kind of feeling in what feels right to you. And I think unless you have a fanny pack or 7 layers and 2 belts, or there's going to be a place that just feels right to you. And maybe that's a 1/2 inch lower than me, 1 inch higher, 2 inches lower, like somewhere in here. And again, that's similar to this, where I was looking to notice any imperfections, but here I'm really just trying to remind myself where I'm moving from, my lower center, where I'm breathing to, where I'm breathing from. So each of these shifts is coming from this region as opposed to my upper body. Here, center, upper body moves, or perhaps my head, like I'm thinking about coming forward. I just want to feel like this moves forward, this is stacked atop it. Good. And of course, I don't know if I came up or not, but whenever you need a break, come up. No problem. That might be every time. That's fine. So I'm going to just turn back into horse, and I'll see if there's any questions or comments. Hey, John Bright is here. That guy, I tell you what, John is about 80 years old, and he can take more pain whilst displaying more joy than any human being I've ever met. I might have met people who can take more pain. That's possible. Sorry, John. I may have met people that show more joy, more readily, more consistently. You know, like the Dalai Lama. He might be more joyful than John. But John is this sort of beatific concatenation of these two energies. He doesn't suffer pain. The spark of life is lit in him, the reminder of his being. So glad to see you, John. You guys should get to know him if you're on. Oh, Hannah is there too. Hi, Jared. Hi, Hannah. Hooray. I was thinking that we might get a visit from the cat, Jared, whose name escapes me at the moment. Maybe Pixie? Is that right? Could it possibly be Pixie? Sifu Lieberman is here. Drew is here. Kelly Gray has made it again. And Jim. Hi, Jim. Good to see you. I hope that you guys are doing well up there. I understand it's been a tough number of months in lockdown. So John's out in California way, and Sifu Lieberman is far upstate New York, I guess we could say. Kelly is in Arizona, at least last I checked. Jared's in Ohio, and Drew is in Illinois. Drew. Where's Drew? I'm not sure what Drew is. Anyway, there you have it. So we're going to transition into some Jinji Duli tonight. This is a rooster stance, often a golden rooster. And I brought the cane out here to give you a sense of feeling okay on a single-legged stance. If that's what you need, feel free to use it. It's not something to be ashamed of. Ultimately, of course, we'd like to support ourselves entirely on our own. But where we are working on developing strength and flexibility and so forth, it may be that we're able to work on that to a degree that goes a little bit beyond our ability to balance. So for example, I might do a single-legged training for 3 minutes, and now I'm just tired, right? Post-injury, my flexibility, my endurance, I got let's say 2 minutes of practice standing on one leg. But I have a little bit more in me in terms of time, energy, commitment, and readiness to do a little bit more of the flexibility, a little bit more of the writing in the lesson into my brain, the learning of the stance. So I'm going to use this as best I can. I'm going to try and stand on one leg, but in those moments I need it, or for those few repetitions I need it, that's fine. I'm going to try not to make it a binary. I don't need it, I don't need it, I don't need it. And then, oh my God, thank God for the cane. But I might very well just be practicing on one leg and just a little steady, just a little steadying, as opposed to this kind of full-on leaning, right? We used the chair the other day in a similar way. So I don't know how lit this is. Of course, it's a black chair. But similarly, using something solid and reliable. I like to use these four-place, four-position canes, 4-leg, 4-foot cane, because they're very, very stable, and also you can just leave it right here, and it's there when you come back. So let's try Jinji Duli. So I'm going to start with my 2 feet together, facing forward. I'm going to open my left foot, either foot would work, I'm going to just say left, and I'm going to just open it, let's say 45 degrees for now. Let's return to center. So when I open it from the hip joint, and if I'm opening this leg, that means my weight's on my other. If my weight's on the other, that leg is bent. So we start in the middle, feet together, and I'm going to just bend my legs a bit. Then I'm going to shift my weight to the bearing leg, which is my right leg, my western leg. Let's try that again. Sink, shift, and then I can open this leg. Let's try it again. A whole bunch of details here in the very beginning. I sink, which means my knees track, my shoulders don't tip forward, my tailbone drops. So there's the sink, just like we did in that horse stance knee tracking kind of warm up tonight. Then when I shift, I'm moving from my lower center. So I don't just kind of lean and get my weight there, right? Here. Often people will lean, and then when they want to lift this leg up, I'll try and exaggerate, since I'm leaning, this leg no longer has to carry my weight, it's in the air, but it has a job to do. I haven't taken the work away from it. Its job is to help cantilever and counterbalance my imbalance. So really what I'd like to do, excuse me, here I am starting the beginning, sink, knees track, tailbone settles, shoulders over pelvis, eyes on the horizon, breathing in the nose, shifting from the center, and then open from the hip. There's my 45 degrees, okay? So if you're going to use a cane, which I guess I have here, I'll just model it with a cane. I'd rather have the cane on the empty leg side than on the side which is bearing my weight, okay? So maybe we can explain why as we go. So from here, this knee is bent, and I'm going to just lift this knee towards the south in the same direction the foot was pointing. So I've just lifted the knee up, that's all. Very, very simple. A lot of times you'll see it practiced this way, or you'll see it practiced this way. You see all these kind of interesting hand shapes, but this could be your hand shape, and that's fine. So we're going to come back and just kind of practice getting into that. I'm going to do the other side. I got to get a little more level here. So I'm going to feet together. For me, I'm facing south. Bend, shift, pivot. So remember, I'm bent in this leg. I know where the knee is tracking, and then come up. So I'm doing this a bit to the side here. Last time I shifted to the open leg, I think. Good. So we'll come back. Sink, shift, open, shift, and up. Now when this knee comes up, if that knee just comes up enough that my toes are just touching or the ball of the foot is just touching, that's fine. You're still doing the stance. It's usually called rooster stance. So here I am entirely on my left foot, save for maybe that tiny little bit of my toe touching or ball of the foot touching, like when we did a cat stance. And that foot's really just underneath the pelvis. Cat stance, we had it a little bit further away. Good. And I guess I should do it in profile. If I come up and I could fit a bowling ball under my foot, right? That's great. Usually I'll teach this and we'll try and come up with this 30-degree line of the femur here, and then 45 with the femur, and then 90. So this is matching the ground. Okay? So I think what I like to do is just try it now. So open, and then up. Haven't finished teaching the stance, just kind of introducing the idea here. Good. So there's our stance. Hey, Stephen Tepper. I don't know. I'm just barely hanging on these days. The COVID probably took away 80% of the income. You know, quadrupled or quintupled my workload with people in need. Tough days, you know. Well, I've been trying to do this little series here every day as a free offering for folks, particularly people that haven't found their way into the basics for one reason or another, maybe in years, maybe ever, and maybe just recently having, you know, had surgery or something. Okay. So we'll come down. So this is I think our first truly single-legged stance. We've done some empty stance work, which is pretty close, nice warm-up. So I've already done my turn. So there's a couple different ways that this femur can be directed. So my foot here is facing southwest, and my femur, unweighted femur is facing south. But it really could be pretty close to matching. It could be 30 degrees open, 60 degrees open, 90 degrees open, and I'd call it the same stance. So we may get to that tonight, kind of practicing it here, practicing it here, practicing it here, and of course you can variously turn the trunk, right? So I could be here and have my trunk facing the foundation leg, face the unweighted leg, face somewhere in the middle, and we're doing the same stance. Good. So one of the challenges that people have is that if their foundation weight is here and their extra support is on this side, or particularly if it's too far away, you ask them to go further out of alignment in order to find their support. So I always like to have it, if it's a cane or something, right beside me, so that this is beneath, my hand is under my shoulder instead of here, which encourages me to lean my weight over there for support instead of find it underneath me. So often in a setting where you're using a cane, let's say this is the injured leg, people will often want to have the support on the injured leg side, and I'd prefer to have it on this side in that case, so that I don't have to pass my weight through my injured leg in order to find the support. I'd rather have that over here. In our case, not being injured and just practicing a stance, I'd rather be looking for my weight on this side, because half of my torso is on this side rather than over here. They would both work, of course, but I think I'd prefer to have it on this side. Good. So I'm going to do this in profile this time. I forgot which side we just did. So I've opened my foot. I can pick my knee up, maybe this 30-degree knee, maybe 45, maybe 90. So a really nice training for advanced people is do 30, 45, 90, then 45, then 30, then open, 35, 45, 90, 45, 30, open fully to 30, up to 45, 90, 45, 30, and then return, you know, and holding each one. But we're not going to be doing that. So let me kind of finish teaching the stance a little bit. So we come up. It's funny, like I'm just getting to it now. The rooster is known for punctuality, and you know, 30 minutes in, I'm telling you the rest of how to do the stance. So I lift the knee, and then what I want to do is the hanging foot. I want to kind of direct the arch of the foot towards the foundation kneecap, which of course is bent. So I have this little life in my shin, in my ankle, and my foot. Of course, I have these hiking boots on, so I have this extra little weight on my feet for single leg training, which is fun. Good. So inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Make sure that in a single leg training, as you tire, you don't begin to straighten your foundation leg. This won't seem like it makes sense, but if you get really tired and you have to change, try sinking a bit more, and you generally will access slightly different recipe of muscles, and you might have a little bit more gas in those. And then you might just need to be done and you're done. But rather than just coming up, try and go a little bit lower. Right. And if you do come up, you want it to be conscious and purposeful, not just when you go back and check in, you realize you've come up. That's not what we want either. In China, the rooster is, I guess I'll do an open one because I wasn't before. So in China, the rooster is, G is the word, and G is kind of done in a flat tone like G, and it sounds very similar to Ji, where it rises, and that's the word for luck, maybe good luck. I think it's just luck. And so, you know, often you'll see this in Chinese anyway, where a word sounds like another word, and therefore you want to avoid it or you want to use it, depending on, you know, if it sounds like grave, let's try not to use it, right? So you'll see rooster done where if I'm facing forward, my foundation foot faces where I'm facing, and then this is either here, forward, open, fully open, you know, anywhere in there. And as I change to those, I might turn. But in terms of facing forward, often you'll see the foundation foot facing where you're facing, but often you'll see that foundation foot open a little bit, and then that's my Junjinduli. So here's my rooster stance. Often it's translated as golden rooster. Really, it's the character from metal. Excuse me. But, you know, if you're going to bother saying metal, you might as well say gold, because that sounds like the best one. So we often see this translation of gold, and I don't know if it necessarily is gold, although a lot of roosters have relatively golden plumage, so we might see that. So I'm going to try opening my foot a little bit, but facing forward, coming up. When I'm in this position, I want to start to recognize how I'm protecting my foundation knee by energizing the hanging foot to keep it both near the knee, but also kind of fitting it. So my arch feels like it can fit on the kneecap or the knee itself, depending on where I am. And often you'll see these where it's just slightly closed, so it's protecting my lower center line, such as against a kick. So, you know, the kick is coming in and, you know, my shin's right there. So Duli Jinji, metal rooster, Duli, often the rest of the stance as it's called, really just means in Chinese, that the way that that term is used, it means having gained independence, or being independent, or independence. So it often has this connotation of having earned it, or fought for it, or something like that. Maybe it's the kind of word you might use, you know, when somebody grows up and moves out of home, or starts their own business, having left, you know, where they worked, or certainly a nation state or country. So, excuse me, I got a little cough going here today, I guess. A rooster is known to be very competitive, very, maybe we'd say brave, like ready to fight all the time, and there's this spirit of independence about it, spirit of luck and punctuality. It's all a bunch of nice things to be considering as you're, you know, hating your legs for being in this stance. So I'm going to do a little variation of it here. I think I left this stone, although your comments are in the way. But yeah, I think you guys can see that stone. To give you, I guess I'll keep using this if we want. To give you another version, often what I'll teach is for people to do this with a medicine ball, which could be a basketball or soccer ball or something. I just have medicine balls around. And I think, speaking of the cane that doesn't fall, this same practice could be where, and I just had the stone here, so I'm using a stone, but it's kind of a nicely shaped stone, I find. I can practice being in this position, bearing the weight in this leg, and, you know, getting a little help with my balance with this foot. Maybe I don't need this, right? So we'd set it out of the way. And I feel, you know, I'm certainly not about to take a step and shifting all my weight onto this. I'm trying to do all the work here, but I can certainly just rest this if I need to, and then maybe return to being very lightly touching it, so you don't see much change, but I felt it. And then if I need to, kind of rest. One of the reasons I like a ball, particularly one that's not going to easily roll away, so you have the texture of the basketball. I use the medicine ball, which has a nice texture, is that I can kind of feel the shape with the arch of my foot kind of fit to the surface of the ball, and yet I still have a little bit of rest if I want. It gives me a good measure for that low lift, you know, so maybe 30 degrees with the ball, maybe 45, depends on how tall you are, how big the ball is. Maybe you guys can see that from here, because we have a nice little kind of curve to this. Now I have the hiking boots on, so I don't have very flexible feet, or I don't have something that can help my feet access their flexibility. But practicing standing like this, when I'm kind of fit to it, I have a little bit of rest if I need it. I'm visualizing it. A nice practice with this is to just slowly sink. So I'm changing this hip angle, and I'm changing my foundation knee and foundation hip. Again, tracking the knee, making sure that knee doesn't go beyond the ball of the foot. And when I sink, trying not to simply kind of think I got lower because I bowed, but actually just sort of sink in that leg. And if I can do that, doing this very lightly, and perhaps I do it facing it a bit more, so this is a more closed golden rooster stance, or I do it a little bit more here. Maybe I open that foot, and I try that a few different ways with a different relationship of my foundation leg. So it's tracking now north as I come down. So there's my practice. And again, you know, maybe I need the cane for that. Now my foot is northwest. So I'm half open, half closed, I guess, with this particular, you know, the angle between my thighs. Here, my foundation foot is essentially west, and there's my practice. And we could certainly go down and hold. Then maybe later on I can try the same thing and see if I can have that same practice without my foot moving. which you'll probably find a lot harder without the reference of the ball. But anyway, that's a little practice. Let's try it again. I'll check in. Hey, right. This is our watching out for pickles posture, Rob. All right, I don't see any questions. Hello, Deborah. Hi, Pixie. Okay. So I think I will call this a day, as I need to eat. And I don't know who else is here, but that's okay. Good. I think I kind of kept using this. I feel like it's going to fall, so I keep my hand on it. I don't usually practice this stance with like something outside. So we have a little bit of energy in the shin, ankle, foot arch of the floating foot. Certainly you're going to feel energized in the muscle tissues of your foundation leg as they work to hold you up. One thing I might point out too is that often when people lift the leg in a stance, they'll kind of have this coincident lean, so it's as if the hip is tight, and when I lift the femur it kind of levers my spine back. I don't know if it's a tight hip in every case. It might just be your sort of awareness of yourself and hewing to the principles, and you kind of miss that you've gone back. So it's nice to check in on the horizon, feel your shoulders over your pelvis. The other reason that this might happen is that your ego is so excited about getting your knee as high as you can that it doesn't care that you lean back. So keep yourself upright. And there's our Jinji Dooley stance that we might do for any number of postures. Hey Joshua, good to see you, sir. Anyway, it's been a long day for me, and I need to eat. I think I had a little bit of yogurt at breakfast and sipping some tea, but I think that's about enough for me in this mid-30 degrees at the end of my day here. So we're going to set it down. I'm going to just pat it out. Exhale, drop the tail. Inhale. Exhale, drop the tail. Inhale, rebuild the spine consciously. Exhale, rebuild the spine. Okay, thank you. Aiming to do it every day. Click that notification bell so you'll be informed when I go live. Being a Taoist, I don't really believe in schedules. Please be safe, enjoy, practice, and give our best to pickles.